Chapter 11. How do you know? 1. Dad had made reference to my black eye at least a dozen times since returning to Salt Creek. "You should see the other guy," he said with a greatly exaggerated voice of a New York City native. It was part of his perpetual attempt to get me to laugh, or at least smile. This, in turn, always made Mom laugh more than me. His bid for my response was successful. However, the wall I'd built to keep happiness at bay didn't care for his jolly attitude. The wall was getting higher as the days wore on, only its construction would occasionally get stalled due to someone's kindness. It was being built with confusion, blood, and isolation. Besides laughter, the enemy of the wall's builder was a simple, fleeting vision of Nora's face or the sound of her voice. 2 nights prior, I brought up the "I'm really leaving" talk with them again. My attempt at being nonchalant about it failed as my parents paused, stared at the horns that had grown from my head, grabbed my words, and began repeating them to me with question marks at the end. We talked it through somewhat. Mom yelled. I responded in kind. Dad played the peacemaker. This wasn't the first time this pattern of conversation had occurred, and it wouldn't be the last, it seemed, until I would finally leave. I honestly felt by coming to South Dakota first, before setting my life back in Georgia, that I was giving a measure of respect for Mom and Dad. That night at the table, we'd not talked about it at all, until Mom, while scooping a generous dollop of potatoes onto Dad's plate, said, "Do you love this girl?" "Her name is Nora, honey," Dad said. "I know her name, Jim. I spent time talking with her, remember? Right here at this table," Mom said with bitterness. "Do we really need to talk about this?" I asked. "I just think that if you're leaving your home, that you need to know what she is thinking. She needs to know where your own heart is, Finn. Is that such a bad thing?" She directed her question to Dad as well as me. "She's a very sweet girl. She's pretty." "Smart, too," Dad piped. Mom looked at him with a "how do you know" look, scrunching her brow. "What, you don't think I talk to my own son?" "Finn, is it so bad to know these things?" Mom asked. "Don't you think you should know?" I ate, pretending to ignore her. I felt heat rise into my collar. "Son?" Mom prodded. "Leave him be, Cheryl." He cocked his head, pleading Mom to back off. "Son, don't you agree?" she asked again. "Mom, look, I appreciate that you care about me, but—" I couldn't continue. It is one thing saying something somewhat intimate to Mom or Dad when they are alone, but together I didn't know what to say or how to say it. I am sure my anxiety was written upon me, enough for them to see. Dad said, "Son, you don't have to talk about this right now." "No, of course not," Mom said. "Let's just eat supper." Nora had made herself permanent residence upon my heart. She moved me to think of myself differently, to think of everything and every thought differently, from 2 perspectives, mine and the one I tried to imagine being hers. Many times I would save my most philosophical questions for her, just to hear her speak over the phone, just to know her mind. "Dad, Mom, things have changed with me." They were patient in listening. They kept silent. Their faces showed desperation and eagerness, as if it had weighed on them and they heard my voice. "I love her." The bullet points I'd listed in my head would have filled out a legal-sized page, no doubt, but I stopped there. I love her. Dad's face was that of the Irish romantic I'd known all my life, consoling, understanding. I was hesitant to look over at Mom, but I did. And as I did, her hand reached up to rest on my cheek. I wasn't ready for that. She didn't speak. "Very well, then," she said as she resumed abruptly to her meal. Fork in hand and napkin bunched up in the other, she looked down at her plate. "Mom, why don't you talk to me? You leave us, you go off to fight in the middle of nowhere. I'm dying inside every day you're not here. I'm sick. I was sick watching the news every day. Bombs, death, and chaos. Don't you see I'm tired of living this way?" She slammed her fork down onto the plate, causing Dad and I to flinch. Her tears were a river at this point. The dam had burst. Dad got up from his chair to console Mom. She pushed his hand away, and with an anger and tremble in her voice, "I finally get you home, safe and sound, and now you want to move to Georgia. If she's so incredible, why can't she move here to be with you? She wants you to leave your mom so much as—" "And Dad," Dad inserted. Mom shot a look at him. I'd picked a piece from her statement. I repeated it in my mind. It pained me. If she's so incredible. I stood, turned, and began walking. I grabbed my leather jacket from the back of Dad's recliner as my feet kept moving. Each step confirmed in my mind, squashing any doubt that I was leaving. "You can't stop me," was what I thought would be my final jab. As I opened the front door, I heard a chair move. "Stop." Dad's voice was hard and piercing. I did. I stopped. He'd disarmed me with one word, in a tone of correction that was shaped by the love he had for my mother. I'd crossed the line. I was sorry, and I was already embarrassed by my behavior. I didn't turn around. I just stood with my head hung. Dad placed his hand on my shoulder. "I just can't stay here, Dad." My words were quiet, only meant for him. The sound of leather resonated in my ear as his grip tightened. I turned and received Dad's hug. I was only a little boy in his arms. "Son, it's okay. Your mother and I, we worry about you, that's all." I pulled back away from him, trying to gain my composure. "I know, Dad." I closed the door, tossed my jacket on the sofa, and walked back into the kitchen. She was scraping what was left from her plate onto another. She swung around to see me. She looked away. "Did you forget something?" I hugged her from behind. She began to weep. "I'm sorry, Mom." 2. It was late. The kitchen was shadowy and quiet. The light of the refrigerator lit the room. In the back of the main shelf was a sealed plastic cup of pudding. It was chocolate. "Troy," I said, "I miss you, bud." The 10-year-old Wilson wanting to race me home was my recollection. Then, as a rush of a pleasant memory surged over me, the darkness of what he had done caused me to forget to breathe for a moment. I grabbed the pudding, closed the door, and turned. Mom. "Sweet Finn." She stood, her eyes filled with tears. "Sweet Finn, I'm so sorry." She used both of her hands to hold one of mine. Then she let go, opened the silverware drawer, grabbed 2 spoons, and gave one to me. I opened the cup. Mom took the first small spoonful. She ate 1 bite, then placed her spoon in the sink. "Want to know something silly?" she asked. "What's that?" I asked, shoving a hefty spoonful into my mouth. "I've stood in here more than once thinking of you because of that cup of pudding. You probably didn't talk to it, though." I grabbed onto this new conversation in the light of forgiveness. It had swept away the dark thoughts of recent, at least for the time being. "You'd be surprised the conversations I've had with various old things that sit around this house." "Like Dad?" We laughed. Mom laughed in a loud snort. She covered her face with both hands, but kept smiling beneath. Her moist eyes were happy. We heard the bed, a groan, then shuffling. "Here he comes," I said. "What's going on in here?" Dad grumbled as he entered our space. I lifted the empty pudding cup to Dad, then tossed it in the trash. I placed my spoon next to Mom's in the sink. I paused. "I love you, Mom and Dad," I said, still looking at the spoons in the bottom of the sink. "You know I love you, right?" I turned. "If I don't go, Mom, I will never know the answers to the questions you asked earlier." I look at you two and I see what I want. And what I want is everything to me. It isn't that I want to leave Salt Creek, but Nora's worth it. She is that incredible.